So this session is about regional use cases, integrating regional use cases and innovation in global standards. This session will be moderated by Mr. P. Balaji from Vodafone Idea. It is intended to have experts from various regions across the world share their key use cases, including application verticals, ecosystem, trends, and best practices related to telecom based technologies in the era of 5G and beyond. May I invite Mr. Balaji to the dais, please? We will be joined in this panel by Ms. Pamela Kumar, the convener of the session, and Mr. Kishore Babu from DOT, Standards Research and Innovation, on stage. And we are joined by Mr. Emilio Davila Gonzalez, who's representing the EU region, Mr. Fatih Abdul Daim, Dubai Utilities, Mr. Gopinath Rao Sine from Malaysia, MTSFB, and Mr. Luciano Leonel Mendes from 5G Brazil. Do we have all the panelists with us now online? Okay. Over to you, Mr. Balaji, for your session.
Thank you very much, Bindu. I think it was a fascinating earlier session where a lot of ground was covered by the moderator and the panelists. And now for this session, of course, we are focusing a lot more on use cases and the role of regional cooperation and setting global standards. If I would just take a context, world over, of course, 5G is getting deployed in significant quantum. People are preparing for 6G standards already and looking at the future. And in the Indian context, we had successful auctions. Recently, all the 4 operators now have spectrum. The government was very proactive in actually giving trial spectrum to the operators even a year ago, just to make sure that there was enough focus on use cases. Because in the end, technology, particularly 5G and beyond, is about making social transformation. It's about more inclusive growth. It's about making sure that essential services, right from healthcare to education, is made available to the last mile. I think the whole concept of this government in India, at least, is about Antyodaya, helping the last person in the line, the disempowered to get empowered, and across with the capabilities that are getting built up into these new technologies. Clearly, we know that the use cases in multiple verticals is going to transform industry sectors as a whole. And so the need for learning from each other, of sharing best practices, of collaborating, not just within verticals or not just within geographies, but across geographies, becomes even more critical. And from TSDSI's standpoint, we're obviously strongly committed to that objective. And as an industry, all the operators and members of TSDSI are committed to the same. We're really fortunate today. We have a fabulous lineup of speakers. From the government side, of course, Mr. Kishore Babu, who's been on our journey right from the beginning on 5G. And we have, of course, also Professor Luciano Mendes from Brazil. We have Dr. Gopinath from Malaysia. And we also have Mr. Fatih Abdul Dayam from Dubai. I think we also have someone from EU, right? I think, yes, Mr. Emilio. Mr. Emilio is, of course, there. I see the EU logo already there, yeah. Yeah, so without much ado, may I do the following? I'll just, Mr. Kishore, I introduced him in the beginning. So what I'll do is I'll probably go around. Mr. Luciano wanted to make a presentation, which I'll keep towards a little bit after getting some initial comments from others. But I just thought I'll, just read out for the August audience here the short bio of each of the speakers, and then request them to also make their opening comments before I come into question and answers post that. So we'll start with alphabetical order. So we're starting with Mr. Emilio Gonzalez, who has been working in the European Commission unit since 2013, and he's been working on innovation and blockchain within the DG Connect organization. He is responsible for coordinating ICT standardization strategies liaising with standards development organizations active in ICT, and in particular building bridges between research and standardization, and how standardization can contribute innovation. I think very, very relevant in the context of this particular panel. So without much ado, may I request Mr. Emilio to give his opening comments.
Yeah, thank you very much for the invitation to join this panel. And I would have been very glad to be with you this time. I hope next time this would be feasible. In any case, in the European Union, we believe that global standards are really important, and in particular, when we talk about the connectivity standards, the ICT standards, this is a global issue. There is no doubt about that, and it's important to have common global standards that avoid, for instance, the fragmentation of the market. And in that sense, we believe that, of course, you will have some use cases that are particular to one region or are too particular to another. You have some concrete requirements that may apply in this region and not in the other. What we believe is important is all the different regions and parties bring together these requirements into the global standardization ecosystem, so that the global standard could cope with these standards. And for that, for instance, in the European Union, we have launched since some years, and India is a good example of our collaboration towards global standards, project of collaboration with like-minded countries in order to exchange as you have said, best practices, exchange common views in order to promote these global standards. And we believe that this is the right way forward, rather to develop different compartments or vertical standards that then will not be interoperable and could lead to fragmentation of the markets. I stop here now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Very relevant comments. May I now move to Mr. Fatih Abdulayam? And he is a subject matter expert in telecom standardization with over 25 years of experience, having led cross-functional projects coordinating with global key partners, vendors, and customers. And he's interfacing the whole cooperation from standardization point of view with global tier one telecom industry players and global standardization bodies, GSMA, GCF, ITU, HC, 3GPP, LCA, and Metaverse Standardization Forum. And he also has many, many uh, publications to his credit, such as white paper, terabit indoor laser-based wireless communication for 5G, terabit indoor laser-based wireless communication, and so on. So I think he's a very accomplished speaker. May I request your opening comments before we come back to a round of questions soon after?
Thank you very much, and good afternoon from the fancy Dubai, United Arab Emirates. In fact, we have started the journey building a standard, either a part of the global standardization or for the region here in the GCC countries back in 2012. We thankfully managed now to be fully integrated, either in a part of the 3GPP, a part of the ITU, a part of the GCF. We are proudly saying that we are the only full member in the GCF. We're building the standard now across the GCC countries, moving from being an open country, open market operating countries, towards having a dedicated software customized for operators. And this will play a major role when we speak about 5G and beyond. And that's why I'm using 5G and beyond, because I'm going to cover this today in a couple of the questions. We see the journey now, as you highly mentioned. It's not anymore regarding an end user as a B2C. Rather, we look at it from a P2P perspective and offering end-to-end service. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Very relevant, and looking forward to your interventions in some of the questions coming up. We then have Dr. Gopinath Rao, who's currently the chairman of the reference panel and chairman of Internet of Things and Smart Sustainable City Working Group under the Malaysian Technical Standards Forum, BHD. He's also the CTO and co-founder of Favoriot SDN BHD, a startup focusing on IoT platforms and solutions. He holds a doctorate, master's, and bachelor's degree from Malaysia, and he has architected many IoT solutions. And he's an expert in IPv6 and Internet of Things and he's a leader in the standardization forums locally and internationally. So very happy to have you here as well on this panel, Dr. Gopinath. Your opening comments.
Thank you, Mr. Balaji. So good evening to everyone. I think it's morning some other parts of the places here. So good day to everyone actually. Yeah, so I'm representing Malaysian Technical Standard Forum. So practically the organization was established back in 2004. And since then, we have currently about 10 working groups and about 100 technical code has been developed since then. Now, back to the topic that we're going to discuss. Yes, it is important to identify the use cases. And in fact, it's a proven process where how we can actually escalate the use cases into being either a guideline document, a technical code, or use case, whatnot. I'll just give an example. I think back in before pandemic, under the ASTAP, Asia Pacific Telecommunity, right? So I was championing of collecting all the smart city and IoT use cases. And from there, what we have done is that after that, so we actually propose under the ASTAP of Resolution 98, which is the Smart Sustainable City and IoT. So the process is that first identifying the right use cases, and definitely after that, there are some parts within the use cases where we can actually look into and identify, create new standard based on that. And I do see, sometimes we often see standards creation comes into two. One is that from use cases, POC, to new standards, and as well as some, like for example, 5G, 6G, and so on, we create the standards first before we implement it. Of course, there'll be some small use case or POC for that. So we need to identify. So in this, discussion that we're going to have today is from the use cases, how we can actually generate or create standards, right? This is a great topic. In fact, all of us should actually look into, how there's so many use cases out there. How can we attract the industries and become part of the, standard developer actually? So we'll discuss that after this. Thank you, Mr. Balaji.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gopinath. I'll just come to you, Mr. Kishore Babu. I think, you are such an expert with over nearly 30 years of experience in the government, and one who has been always working in new areas. And you've got the benefit of actually working even in the international relations part of the Government of India initiative. So your opening comments and maybe just a little vision on how you see from the Indian standpoint this whole area of 5G and beyond developing from a use case point of view, and all the innovation that is being encouraged by the government.
Thank you, Balaji. Hello. Thank you, Balaji, and very good afternoon to all of you. In fact, as Balaji rightly mentioned, I have the opportunity of, working with always experts and a lot of learning from all of you. Thank you very much. Now, coming to this issue of, specifically about 5G use cases, or use cases per se in telecom sector, what I have seen is that unlike the mobile, which required minimum skill sets to adopt and use, but as the sophistication increased, as the capabilities increased, adoption of the use cases is taking long time, and it requires enduring capacity efforts in terms of users, in terms of the government as well as to proliferate. In fact, if you look at in the current Indian context, while 4G itself has got several use cases which we have seen globally, but still adoption of them, I should say, at very infant stage beyond the voice and data for public use. There itself is a huge opportunity even for the 4G use cases. So what we have seen, especially with regard to 5G, considering its enormous capabilities in every socio-economic vertical, how they can make difference, especially in the context of sustainable development goals, how they can make environment as well as our operations more green and more clean. There is a proactive effort from Government of India to promote in partnership with different ministries, industry bodies, as well as associations, and also the several research agencies, how we can proactively take 5G use cases to the industry verticals as well as enterprises with partnership with telecom service providers. I can say that last 2 years, yes, I can say last 2 years, operators have been, trying and doing the trials for 5G technologies as well as trying some of the use cases, and they have seen the success in, especially for enterprises and also many of the applications, including, education, etc. And also, banking, other sectors, we see a lot of opportunity for the 5G use cases. Yes, these are my initial remarks. More we can discuss how 5G use cases can help in taking forward in achieving the sustainable development goals, especially about we know that everybody is speaking about how we can make the current what we inherited as a what's called the Mother Earth, how we can give them safely to the next generations. So it's a concern for everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kishore Babu. I'll just introduce Mr. Luciano. I think his presentation can come a little bit later, but maybe again for his opening comments on the topic. But Mr. Luciano Mendes is a master's degree from Anatel, Brazil. He has done a doctoral degree from Unicamp, Brazil, all in electrical engineering. And since 2001, he's also been a professor with Anatel. He's led several research projects funded by FAPMIG, FINEP, and BNDS. His research areas include solutions for the physical layer for the future fifth generation of mobile communication systems. And he has published several papers in research field in the last few years. We'll come to a presentation a little bit later, Mr. Mendes, Dr. Mendes, but are there any opening comments you'd like to make to the members of the panel or to the August audience that is listening to us?
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. Thank you for the opportunity. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. My main comments goes in the direction of that presented by Emilio also, right? So we are looking for the evolution of networks all over the world, and they do realize that we need to apply these networks in different environments with different user case. And local solutions is not the answer. We have tried that in the past, and it fails, right? You don't have the scale, it's so expensive, at the end you cannot deploy it. So you need to come up with a global solution, one main systems that can be tailored for specific applications. So you need to think about a flexible network that can cover user case all over the world. So I truly believe that's the goal that we need to achieve now.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mendes. That's very, very relevant comment you make. I'll just go through a round of question answers with our panelists, starting with Mr. Emilio Gonzalez. A couple of questions which I'm just going to ask you. First, in your view, I know there's a lot of collaboration that's taking place between the EU and India. And so how do you see the whole ICT standardization process that's happening and the collaboration between India and EU helping innovation in the global standards? And are there any implications of the recently adopted EU standardization strategy with reference to the role of EU in global standardization? I think these could be good dimensions for us to hear from you. Over to you, Mr. Gonzalez.
Yeah, thank you very much for the questions. They are very interested indeed. Let's start with the second one. As you have said, Europe recently has approved in the 2nd of February a strategy on standardization. And this gives you an idea of how important we believe that global standardization is to advance with the technology applications in Europe and of course worldwide in the field of digital technologies. And in this European standardization strategy, where we explain and we acknowledge the geopolitical importance of standards, there is a commitment from Europe to be involved in global standardization. So we believe that having global standards is important in order to open up a market to all the players around the world, and something that Luciano mentioned as well, to have enough economies of scales and to ensure the scalability of product, services, and applications. And this is why one of the major strands in this strategy is the implication of the EU and of Europe in international and global standardization. So there we commit to try to support our experts, our companies, to participate, to be even more involved that we are now in global and international standardization. by many different actions. And one of things there that we also include in this strategy is the collaboration with like-minded countries to promote these global standards and to bring our common values and ensure that our common values are incorporated into these global standards. And then I come back to your first questions. One example of this collaboration that we have had in the past, of course, is the one that we have had with India for many years. So you know, between India and the EU, there is digital cooperations at administrative level that has been produced very successful results in the common years, and both our respective presidents have agreed on continue this collaboration, and we are happy to have that. And examples of this collaboration, besides all the dialogues that we have at administration level, we have also some concrete projects, for instance, in cooperation on ICT standardization. We are glad that our respective standardization organizations in telecom, for instance, ETSI and TSDSI, have been cooperating for years in order to promote cooperation and also to incorporate India to the global standardization arena. Concrete examples of these collaborations, workshops to exchange good practices, to identify common use cases that could help developing the standards and address those requirements, having hackathons to bring the experience of the standards into to the researchers and to the SMEs, and dialogue in key technologies. And for instance, one good example was we were very glad to see that the adoption by India of one of the first countries to adopt the 1M, 2M standards for Internet of Things as national standardizations, where Europe has also been promoting these global standards on Internet of Things for a long. And we believe that this collaboration should continue. We have also the example of the Indico project that was not only collaborating with India, but also with other regions. And we will continue these collaborations with like-minded countries. Thank you.
Thank you so much for giving some very concrete examples, Mr. Gonzalez. I'll come back to you in a bit. Moving on to Mr. Fathi. So would you like to just share from your perspective, as these use cases are coming up in your region, where is your focus area? Where do you see the development of the ecosystem in terms of the specific industry use cases, and how do you see the development taking place for 5G and beyond?
Thank you very much, Mr. Pelagi, for the question. And maybe I will connect here to the very nice introduction of Dr. Luciano regarding the role of creating a global standard. Maybe I have a completion for here, which is the role or the need of having a regional standard, because we have seen from the past that being as a small operator, maybe in the region, it will not give you the highlight being addressed with your needs, with your requirements. And that's why we have started an initiative to create a GCC standard, which will be linked to the GCF standardization, which is driven by the 3GPP and IEEE, simply because the fact was we have small operators, for example, just serving like 8 million subscribers or less. And if you have your customer base, maybe a majority of them were 2G users. When you think of upgrading them to 3G, 4G, and 5G beyond, you need to have support from the tier 1 suppliers. And that was not given at that time because simply the tier 1 global players, they look at the value proposition. And that's why we have this initiative creating a GCC standard, as I mentioned here. We started a pilot in the UAE here, gathering to the 2 main operators. We could see a very good results. And now we are taking this to the GCC, and later the target will be to have it to the MENA region, where we have 2 objectives. One is to guarantee that the interoperability, to guarantee the first service quality. At the meantime, maintain the cost in a level where low brand vendors can afford the compliance to the standard. I will have maybe just two examples. Last year, we have hosted the CXO, the ITU CXO conference, which is being held in December, and it's again this year in Dubai as well. And we have proposed a paper to the ITU CXO, where we have a communique at the end of the conference. The paper simply was to onboard the academia, and this is something maybe we need to look at either from the regional standard or from the global standard. We need to involve the academia, moving them from being the theory to bring them to the fabric, actually to the industry itself. We have amazing success stories in the past 2 years. For example, autonomous driving was fully developed by one of universities in the United Arab Emirates here. We have the first pilots in the street, and even we will demonstrate this to the GCMA event, which will be hosted in end of November this year in Dubai. The second thing where we have looked at is building an R&D capability where, for example, we have given the chance to scouting for startups. And of course, if you speak about this, you need to think about what do I need to standardize in this case. I'm looking only about 4G, 5G, and beyond. I believe in a theory where there is something called actually compliance to the compliancy. So now you don't expect any new service, maybe if they got the approval of the 3GPP, if they got the approval of the regulatory in the country, you don't expect really that much variation of the standard itself. Where you need to look at, and where we see it here, you need to look at the end user or the user experience. And this is not standardized at all. So maybe if we put all this together, we come out with an initiative being kicked off 3 years ago, which is Abu Dhabi 42. Abu Dhabi 42 is a coding school, as they say, the name it says. The government in the United Arab Emirates and even in the region, they saw the need of building the know-how in country and in the region itself, and that's why they initiated the Abu Dhabi 42, which is a coding school. It's we have similar examples of 42's university. It's a peer-to-peer education where actually you select the curriculum you'd like to study. You define the methodology. You can develop the use case. If the use case is valid, you can directly take it to the market. And this is something we are building over in the couple of coming years.
Thank you so much. I think it's a very interesting set of points you've got, including mainstreaming academia into the whole journey. I think that's a very good point that you made. I'll come back to you in a bit. Moving on to Mr. Gopinath. Would you want to share some of the experiences on how the standards creation process is happening in your region, and also what is being done to actually attract industries to contribute to the standards development process more in a collaborative way? So would you like to throw upon that, or if you want to build up on the point of the academia involvement that was being spoken by Mr. Fathi?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Mr. Balaji. Yeah, I think we have a very strategic process on how we can actually engage the industry players to come on board. And initially, when we started the standardization forum, it is quite difficult, to get the SMEs, small and medium enterprises especially, and industries to contribute to the standardization activity. So over the period of 14 years or so we have learned on how we can actually engage those industry players. And one way is to attract them is, of course, to give them a carrot. Otherwise, big organizations are fine. Microsoft, they are all, self-sustained, so they are fine. But then SMEs, how do we encourage them to come on board, right? So that's why we introduced something called Industry Promotion and Development Grant. See, the purpose of the grant is threefold. One is that for them to come up with the new innovative ideas of any solutions. So the solutions could be any ICT that uses ICT practically. The second is, of course, development, economic development. And third one, which is more important, is that they should focus on developing standards after they complete the POC. In fact, one of the success story, I would say, is that one of the projects that we have done back in 2019 on elderly care. So they've successfully completed the project. And after that, we move on. We use that use cases and propose as a report as part of the RSTOP. And currently we are finalizing, and most probably the next ASTAR meeting we should conclude of collecting all other use cases in the region, on an aging population, how we can tackle aging population. But this is all use cases. It's no standards yet, right? Now, at the same time, if you notice the recent WTSA, we have also proposed of including the aging population, right, in Resolution 78. But the purpose of that is that to come up with kind of a standards later on. So if you see the process is that first we try to find local use case and then move on to regional, which is ASTAP, and then try to convince and update the particular document in Resolution 78. Now, coming back, so this is how we actually encourage local industry players and SMEs. In fact, we have a lot of success stories from universities, academics, even though we use the term industry promotion grant, but a lot of academicians actually have gotten the grants and successfully completed those projects. So what we want along the way is also to have a strategic partnership with other regional, standard bodies similar to TSDASI as well. So we have a collaboration with them. We also have collaboration with other standard bodies across the region so that we can learn from them. Now, I just want to take one more example is that, we know European Union is very good at the standards, right? So one of the documents that we have actually currently adopting is the baseline security for IoT devices. So it's a very wonderful document. So what we do is that we use the document as a base and we try to update some parts of it just to cater for local need. So this is how I see the collaboration, international collaboration will take place. Yeah, that's my point. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think again, each panelist is bringing out new dimensions. So it's really good. You spoke about the challenge in attracting SMEs and how to make sure that we can actually get them into the whole process. And it's very unique the way you talked about a grant and then building from there to get the regional partnerships and SDO partnerships and also cross learning. I think it's fantastic. Mr. Kishore Babu, just moving over to you. I think, I mean, we do talk about the whole focus in India for startups and, involving them, and the whole journey that you had for the 5G high-level committee, which had representation strongly from academia, and also the initiatives that you're doing. How do you see that developing? Are you kind of happy from the government point of view that it is starting to deliver on the objectives that were set initially? And what do you see are initiatives that might be required to accelerate it further for 5G and beyond?
Thank you, Balaji. When you look at collaboration itself as a concept, as a practice, it is something very complex and, so many factors and dynamics are involved. Not only between two organizations, two entities of different DNA, and even between two people. Building collaboration is something more productive, at the same time, very complex unless variables are taken care. So what DOT and Indian administration is planning to do is that to build strong collaboration across academia, industry, as well as various government departments with regard to developing productive use cases. Here, with regard to use cases, I also want to share something. When I was listening to the first panel discussion, I was going through Googling what is that contributing, big way for this, let's say, green issues. What are the kind of sectors which have been producing huge amounts of greenhouse gases? In fact, the list looks to be very interesting, and we can always relate to that. What use cases can contribute to that? See, it says globally the greenhouse gases are developed by 70 or contributed 72% by three sectors. One is electricity generation and heat generation. It almost contributes to 31% of the greenhouse gas generation. Transportation 15%, and manufacturing and construction 12%. So look at whatever the technology offers to you, which can address more efficient way or less consuming of these things. Trust me, it is going to contribute to green. So when I was looking at what way either 4G or 5G can help, or already helping, if I look at working from home, it's very green. Learning from home, yes, it is very green. And efficient manufacturing, smart manufacturing, again, it is green. Anything that reduces your net transaction cost, it is green. So let us look at use cases, either 4G or 5G, what way they can reduce your transaction cost. That's what we are looking at basically with the theme of today's SDGs as well as the use cases. So as the previous speakers mentioned, uh, almost all the use cases we have seen that either they are increasing operational efficiencies, causing productivity, and only thing what we are looking at as a kind of where more collaboration, more enablement is required is that how we can bring in from these use cases from the ideation or pilot stage to deployment scenario. In between, of course, there are certain things like standardization as well as how we can enable regulatory process to make it big way commercially deployed, etc., are some of the issues which we all need to handle them together. As Mr. Balaji rightly asked about what Government of India is doing, especially to build collaboration, especially these areas, we know that they're green areas and where many of the regulatory as well as the technology as well as the operational commercial factors are involved. So Government of India has formed something called the Interministerial Committee on 5G Use Cases, which is having horizontal as well as vertical ministries departments together coming to around 21. You name any socio-economic department is part of this interministerial committee. And you all might have seen something called a movie called Lagan, where there's a cricket team. Okay, like that, we have got a Lagan team for 5G use cases from the industry, academia, as well as startups, SMEs, and also service providers. So we go to Ministry of Health, we go as a gang with all these people together. We show them that these are, what are available from us. What we can sell to you. I can see my director Subhash Chandra smiling there because he's heading that from SRA division. So for every ministry, call it agriculture, call it education, we go to them with these specific use cases to showcase that this is available. What way can help us to take forward? Because ultimately, rollout happens through the telecom service providers, of course, in partnership with technology companies as well as ideas coming from academia, etc. But to be honest with you, the takeoff is slow. There is a challenge, in fact, to see them get deployed on a quicker basis. The challenge, what is in front of us when we see from Government of India, is about how we can aggressively reduce the adoption gap. And I was really amazed when I saw Vodafone's presentation on agriculture, how they have deployed in multiple states, especially agriculture use cases using 4G, and how it has been yielding results. I can see much more impact which can be more clean and green in terms of benefit to the mother earth as well as humankind by quickly adopting even the 5G use cases. So the two areas what we see as the issues with us is about how we can quickly convince the users to take it forward. Of course, there is something called capital investment is involved, and how we can make or minimize this, the cost of adoption of technology. And second thing is about bringing a kind of change in the mindset to adopt them. Yes, we are all as a stakeholders, we are involved, how we can standardize them, how we can make and showcase successful pilots. These are some of the issues what I see as barriers in front of us. And as one of the previous speakers mentioned, regionally they are also compiling or collaborating on the use cases. Yes, it's a big opportunity for all of us where during the recently held India Mobile Congress, we have compiled many use cases from different stakeholders. Even we are willing to share these details along with the partners coordinates so that we can exchange and we can learn and make more efficient use cases in the context of today's discussion. Thanks, Balaji.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kishore Babu. I think you touched upon dimensions on, I think you added the dimension of getting the other government ministries involved. And I'm sure that is true about, and those who actually have an impact on industry verticals. You spoke about slower pace in some cases. It's good to have some impatience in driving use cases and standards. I think it's always good to do that. And the need for adoption and engagement. I'll come back to all the speakers in a little bit on are you seeing any other challenges? I think you, Mr. Kishore Babu, mentioned about one. I'm sure across the panel we'll find out what challenges they think are inhibiting some of these use cases or collaboration, and what potentially can be good practices from their point of view. But before I go there, I'll just request Mr. Luciano. Dr. Luciano, in fact, he wanted to make a short presentation that in the context of what we are discussing, collaboration, use cases, standardization, and getting the entire ecosystem stitched up. He wanted to speak about what is happening in the 6G context in Brazil. So over to you, Dr. Luciano. Maybe you can just cover quickly your slide deck and the messages that you want to give to the participants in this conference, and then we'll probably go around a few questions with the other panelists. Thank you.
Thank you. So I hope you can see my screen now. My goal here
Yes,
is
it's
just
visible.
Okay, thank you. My goal here is just to give you a general idea of what's happening in Brazil in terms of research on future networks and how the user case is motivating us to go beyond 5G. So just a little bit about the Brazil 6G. It's a research project that's led by Inatel. I am the research coordinator of this project. We are trying to understand what Brazil needs in terms of user case, infrastructure, requirements, and try to propose some solutions for those user case. We are trying to propose technical infrastructure that can sustain those user case. So this project is a national project. So a lot of universities and companies are involved in this. Just here are the main ones. And they are also working with another university in Europe. University of Oulu is the main one. Also Technical University of Dresden. And Carlos III in Spain also. So we are working together to build this vision that can be one solution for 6G. So it's very important for us to go to this discussion now because in Brazil you have huge problems in terms of coverage, and it is affecting one of most important vertical here in Brazil, which is the agribusiness. So it's very important for us to get IoT in the field and also promote connectivity in remote areas, in rural areas, places that today there are a lot of people living there and there is no coverage at all. So Brazil is not as huge as India in terms of market, but it's also not that small. So you have now around 200 million inhabitants in Brazil, and more or less 9 million to 10 million people are not connected today because they live in areas that is not covered. So it's a B2C opportunity here, but also a B2B opportunity, providing connectivity for farms and creating smart farm. So you're now looking for main four user case. You're looking for this extreme world coverage, which is for broadband and also IoT connect all over the territory of Brazil. That's very important for us for monitoring the forest. So the Amazon and also the frontiers and the borders that Brazil has with other countries in South America, need to monitor that. Also, it's very important for monitor disasters. So having IoT available everywhere allow us to make sure that disasters can be avoided. And of course, provide the connectivity for people that live in remote areas is very important. Also, security is very important for us. Public security is one of the main issues nowadays in Brazil. You need to improve the quality of security systems and help the public forces to guarantee security of people here in Brazil. Of course, as I mentioned before, agribusiness is very important. Nowadays, Brazil is improving the production of soybeans and the animal proteins, but at the cost of also increasing the area that is being exploited for that. So you need actually to keep improving the production, but in the same area that is exploited today. So you need to improve the productivity. And we believe that technology is one of the tools that's necessary to be in the field to allow that to happen. So having an operation mode for mobile networks that can be deployed in the fields and can be profitable for the operators and profitable for the farmers, it's very important. And the last one that is very important, not only for Brazil, but I guess for the entire world, is advanced remote communications. During the pandemic, you saw that this kind of relationship that you have right now, right? I'm here in Brazil, a beautiful morning in Brazil. I believe you are now entering in the afternoon in India, and some place in the world you're at night, so you're all connected all the time. But having this relationship based on 2D images and only voice, it's very limiting. right? I would enjoy to be with you in India, enjoy your food, enjoy your environment. So doing that remotely, it's not the same nowadays. So you need to add the other senses to this network, add another sensations. Tactile is very likely to be the first one, so you're looking for that to allows this kind of communication to be more natural, right? So right now it's very artificial, it's not really fulfilling, and I think we need to move on to something else. So here in Brazil, you're also looking for that, adding some extra senses in the communications, which is quite challenging, but it's in our roadmap. So looking for that, if you look what 5G is offering now, it's basically the very nice communication tools, most for urban areas, using millimeter waves and MIMO, massive MIMO, and so on. So I think we need to look into the technology itself and see if this technology can be tailored for remote areas, agribusiness, and so on. What you need to change in the physical layer, in the MAC layer, in the network layer to allow that to happen. I truly believe that you need to change some things, right? You need to add these requirements into the design of the future of 5G networks and 6G networks. And beyond that, you also need to add sensing, image positioning. Uh, have been mentioned just a few minutes ago about the autonomous driving and this kind of autonomous devices, intelligent devices that are going to be sharing the environment with us. So you need to have this capability of sensing, AI, image processing, and also collecting data from the environment all the time. So 6G is not going to be only communications, right? It's going to be a sensing network, it's going to be an image network, a position network. So you need to add new features for the future mobile network. And you're trying to build that here in Brazil. Nowadays, you are building this platform, which is basically an environment where operators, companies, and universities can test algorithms in the field, in the real conditions, right? So it's a national-wide platform for 6G development. So a company can have an idea of, for example, an application that can be running over this network and can test on this environment. New algorithms can be developed for the network layer, physical layer, and so on. So you truly believe that future networks need to be flexible, right? So it's not only one radio access network that to solve the problem, but you need to use several radio access network, and they need to coexist, collaborate, and be combined. So otherwise, those goals will not be achieved, right? So that's what they're not trying to build here, using soft-defined networks, soft-defined radios, with very flexible physical layers, MAC layers, and network layers. So our next step is to make this platform available for everybody to use. So this connection over the world can be done within this platform. You are also collaborating with another research institutes over the world. So try to bring other partners to help us to build this network and also to collaborate with them with this standardization. We are transferring this technology already for some companies that are interested in using AI for telecommunications, for example, and we are promoting these opportunities in events like this one, like I'm doing right now, and also you are contributing with the agencies, not only in Brazil, but also in Europe and other countries, for the policies, for the requirements, and of course, we are working with the standardization bodies in Europe and also in Asia. So that's what I had to present to you right now. Thank you very much for the attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Luciano. I think you made some relevant points in terms of creating platforms, putting some of the societal goals right on top in terms of connectivity, and then kind of building the whole platform from that perspective. So thank you so much. I'll quickly move to the last round of questions as I'm mindful of time. Um, I think I'll first go to Mr. Gonzalez. I know not only with the India EU, which you talked about, the ICT and the digital cooperation, you're also working with other international standardization initiatives and dialogues. Maybe you can mention a couple of things. One is while you'll probably talk about how they're developing, but do you see some barriers, and what, in your opinion, are things that seem to work better in overcoming some of the challenges as we start to collaborate on use case and standardization?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Maybe before entering the concrete in the question, just let me explain also how we promote collaboration in Europe, because we have not explained how we try to develop our use case. And I have to say that I very much agree with the vision that all the other speakers have explained about the importance of bringing together, because standards is a matter of collaboration, and bringing together academia, industry, big industry, the SMEs, and also the users. That's very important, from verticals or from society. And there we do it bringing together in public-private partnerships. So we have it for 5G in the 5G PPP, and supporting also the creation of the 5G Industry Association. And now in the 6G, we are promoting the creation. We have created the joint undertaking Smart Networks as Services, that again is a public-private partnership with all the different stakeholders. And then we ask them not only to develop strategic roadmaps, but also to agree on strategic research agendas, and contribute, bring the results of this research and innovation projects into standardization. And through this organization, they are also paramount for promoting the collaborations with other countries. So again, we have this institutional dialogues, like now we have the TTC, the Transatlantic Trade and Technology Council dialogue with the United States. We have digital partnerships with countries like Japan, launching also, trying to launch with South Korea, or the cooperation on digital that we have with India. We have also some dialogues with Brazil and Latin American and Caribbean countries, and we would like to include the standardization dimension and how to contribute all together to standards as part, fundamental part of these dialogues. When listening to Luciano Mendes and the agricultural things, this is something you have seen that there are European partners working with them, and this is something we have worked already in previous phases together. And for instance, things that we can do is to bring all these stakeholders that have already some practices and researching and promoting solutions in the different topics, and exchange views and experiences with other countries. With this project Indico that I was explaining before on cooperation on international standards, we had such experience, for instance, or smart cities or IoT standards with South Korea, Japan, India, Latin America, and we learned a lot from these countries how to bring together. So this is the kind of activities that we would like to continue doing in the coming future, because again, we are talking about global standards, and it's important that all stakeholders cooperate together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gonzalez. Mr. Fathi, just moving over to you. Some key challenges that you see and some best practice that you might want to share on how journey has been in overcoming some of those.
Thank you again, and Dr. Luciano, I'd like to also to connect again for the very excellent presentation, and maybe I will stress that the future will be needing not only capable networks but flexible networks, and I will take it from there. In fact, from the technology development we see here, now if we speak about Dubai, Dubai is always connected to innovation, smart city. Actually, the challenge we see, it's the first is the security. Of course, the more connected you are, the more vulnerable you are. The challenges with the security coming, the security itself, not to maintain the security. Actually, the cost of the security itself, the receipt numbers we have seen, it's amazing how does it cost per minute to maintain your security, either on a network level or in a user level. The second challenge, which I'm sure we'll be facing here at the spectrum, either the RF spectrum, the availability of the spectrum itself, and the efficiency of the spectrum, third, the cost of the spectrum, and this is something we have now to deal with, either in 5G, and we are speaking about 6G and beyond, and that's why I will take an example where we see an initiative. You have seen in my biography that I am actually one of the board members in the LCA. LCA is the Light Communication Alliance. It's simply Li-Fi. And maybe I point here to India. You are really one of the riders and one of the most active partners in this association. the government and the leadership in the United Arab Emirates are pushing for new innovations, and one of them we saw the opportunity on adopting Li-Fi. Well, why we don't think of a new spectrum which give us, as of now, the coming challenges and the use case. If I may take an example, in October we had the GITEX. The GITEX is actually the biggest telecom exhibition in the MENA region. It's similar to the Mobile World Congress, but for MENA. The years past the COVID-19 were the focus totally on 5G and robotics. So everywhere you go, everybody was talking about 5G is bringing robotics, AI, machine learning. This year, and then the question, I usually like to debate what comes first actually. Is it the use case or the standard? And you can have lovely discussions about that. Before that, this year, usually we were thinking about the standard. The standard comes first, of course, and then we develop the use case out of the standard. With the GITEX this year, we found out that everything is talking about metaverse. Metaverse is not standardized at all. I mean, there is no standard for metaverse. There is no standard. I mean, we have a bunch of standard bodies that are talking about metaverse, but the game is being now reshaped. If we see the development, the very radical development of metaverse, we have to ask ourselves about, do we have enough technology and capacity to cater for metaverse? Metaverse, we are talking about holograms, and holograms as the current 5G cannot be fully served using 5G capabilities. Then we have to think about a new technology. And again, here we are pointing at Li-Fi. Li-Fi, it can be a solution for this. But then the question is, how far can we globally standardize Li-Fi? We have good results now. For example, in November, end of this year, we are going to have a fully approved standard for the interoperability between Li-Fi and Wi-Fi using the Wi-Fi baseband. And this the work item is being submitted to the IEEE. It will be approved by the end of this year. And I think this is again per my say, we will have a paradigm shift in the telecommunication industry once we have the integration between Wi-Fi and Li-Fi. And I think from there we can focus on the challenges that coming in the future.
Thank you very much. I think you spoke about paradigm shift. You also spoke about the challenges, including security and internet. It's an important dimension. Quickly coming over to Dr. Gopinath, your comments on challenges and some best practices. I know you've shared some already, but as I bring this panel to a close, I just thought it'll be a good opportunity, since you've heard other speakers, to reflect a little bit on that. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Balaji. Yeah, as I said earlier, if you look at the local in Malaysian context, one of the big challenge that we had is we always was a consumer of standard. We are not part of the creation of the standards. So that has been changed over the years. The big reason is that the process that we have implemented over the years. Earlier, it's so much difficult to get industry players to come on board and then to contribute, because they don't see the benefit of contributing. Now, what we have worked on along the years is that have strategic partnership locally with associations. So, for example, manufacturer associations, agricultural associations, medical related associations, and so on, which encompasses a bigger organizations. So we start with that, and then also at the ministerial level. So we try to infuse of having standard part of the KPI of any of the use cases or any of the POCs is being developed by either academicians, any grants that have been used, given out, and so on. Now, at the same time, what we are also doing is to try to establish regional standardization collaboration with all the SDOs. To reach out and to understand how we can also contribute, how we can work together in establishing a common use cases for global standards. Now, this is an entire process. One of the good use cases that we have right now is about smart cities. See, we have created a smart city ecosystem, identifying what are the devices, what are the connectivity, what are the platform, and specifically looking into the platform. So we require interoperability of the platform. Now, so this is where we look into whether there is a regional standard. Yes, there are ITU standard, but then it may not be good enough for us. So we need to fine tune the standards. So this is where all the stakeholders for smart cities come on board, and they say, yes, it is important for them to do, and then we'll try to accommodate those interoperability standards. And this will, of course, move on to the next level, which is regional and also the global. So like that, what I feel is that the process is important. We have expertise everywhere. We have expertise from the use cases, we have expertise in the standards. If the process is right, then we can actually push all the use cases to the right standards that we need. Yeah.
Thank you so
thanks.
much. I like that comment on process, almost like, if you know the objective and the journey is right and the process is right, then you get there faster. Some closing comment from you, Mr. Kishore Babu, before we conclude this.
Thank you, Balaji. In fact, not much, as a closing comment, but I want to, stress and encourage perhaps the collaboration among the different entities who are part of this engagement, and also among the SDOs, and most importantly, who are all stakeholders here. It could be industry, academia, as well as research institutions. Lot of work is happening among ourselves. The more we collaborate and share, that's going to be, yield more results and more quick manner. And for pilots, what I can see, one of the reasons for the adoption lag is that, doing effective pilots to demonstrate the evidence on ground, that how it is going to help them, that vertical. Thank you, Balaji.
Thank you so much. I think you will all agree that this was a fabulous panel, and one that actually got a lot of convergence in thoughts and ideas, and also open sharing of best practices across regions, and a willingness to put yourself out there to speak about topics and challenges as well, and not just talk about the good things. So I think I'm not even going to attempt to summarize anything here, but maybe Bindu, if you just want to tick off one or two questions from the panel before we close it. From the audience here before we close this.
Yeah. So are there any questions from the audience in the room? Mr. Tyagi?
I have been associated with a little bit with the 5G standardization. And at that time, it was very clear that the proliferation of 5G is going to happen much faster if we collaborate with some forums, some equipment manufacturers who have come together, and also industry 4.0 kind of different standards which are there. So what is the prescription or the effort that we are seeing going forward in terms of having the collaboration with 5G standard and the standard of all of these forums of the different type which exist?
I think Dr. Luciano had presented something in Brazil. Do you want to take a...
Yeah. Yes, I can try to address these questions. It's quite challenging, right? So exactly what is what I was telling before. We need to make sure that future networks is not based on one radio access only, but actually it can be integrated to the other networks. We are seeing something happen in this direction right now with 5G and satellite networks. We can see that 3GPP has opened the core using some specific blocks that can allow to connect Wi-Fi and also satellite networks. So you need to go more in this direction. So I believe in the future, it's already happening right now actually, but in the future it's going to be more interaction between the different sterilization processes and allow the mobile network also to provide access to users using other technologies. So local technologies like Li-Fi and also IoT technologies like LoRa and Sigfox will be naturally integrated in the future core of the network. So these integrations is needed, right? So it's complementary technologies that need to work together in order to achieve the goals and to provide those results that they're seeing in the future. So it's challenging, but I think it's happening, and the conversation should start as soon as possible.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, the question was different, little bit different. Of course, thank you for answering that and bringing together all the networking technologies and the communication technologies. But, as Fadi has very aptly said, that 6G is not going to be communications only. It's going to be encompassing all the agencies and the standards which are in different use cases. The question was more from the perspective of how do we align and carry forward the standardization effort that has been done in different domains to combine with the 5G, that was, or 6G for that matter.
Do you want to try and attempt that, Mr. Fathi or Mr. Gonzalez?
Yeah, but I think the question itself gives the answer. It's a real challenge, and what we need is to bring all the stakeholders together, and this is possibly the only way forward. And it's important, as you have said, already 5G, but 6G, which, by the way, we don't know how it will look like exactly, because we are now in the really first steps and in the namely the research stage. Is something new, not focusing only on one particular radio access way, but integrating many different networks, technologies, services and applications, and possibly the only way is to try to put forward an ecosystem where we can ensure the right collaboration with all stakeholders, not only the technology drivers, but also those that are defining the use cases. So we can ensure that then the standards could address the requirements identified by the different use cases.
I might just actually add what the panelists said earlier, and I'm just building on the point, is to say that I think Mr. Kishore Babu also mentioned about use cases, and that's what I think Dr. Luciana was talking about. Moment you have something visualized, right, as a proof of concept, something that people can understand, is making a difference in the lives of enterprises, individuals, or the disempowered. Automatically, it's a way to kind of connect just not the process or the mind, but also the heart. And I think, to my mind, it's a more challenging way to approach it, but it's one that will probably give more lasting solutions. So that would be my comment, to just build on what the other August panelists have already mentioned.
People in
Can-
the room,
can-
we have the advantage of, because we're running now almost 40 minutes late, we have the advantage of interacting with the panelists over tea break. So may I suggest that we conclude this session, and we have a very short tea break in which the question and interactions can continue. Of course, let me advertise, TSTSI provides a platform. Please continue with these engagements by maybe sending us an email, and we will help facilitate and continue these discussions going forward. Balaji, so we will conclude this session. Any concluding remarks?
Nothing else. Thank you so much to everyone. The panelists are absolutely brilliant. My huge thanks to people that have joined very early in the morning or very late in the evening. So really, on behalf of TSDSI, thank you to all the panelists, and thank you for the engaged audience.
Thank you very much. I'll request Pamela to please do the honors. Felicitate Mr. Balaji for having chaired this session.
Thank you. Excellent panel. Looks
And-
like everybody understands it's all about collaboration.
Yeah.
And Mr. Kishore Babu, please.
So thank you so much, Kishore Babu, and I hope your thought in every country is doing the same way we are.
Thank you very much. Questions on the online tool can please will be recorded by us and posted to the panelists separately. We now go for a short tea break, and yes, we will have a picture taken. Can we have the panelists on the online tool, please, in the focus? All four of them, please.
You got the technology working very fast. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We will have a very short tea break, and in this hall, we can bring our snacks inside the room. We will start at 5:30 sharp with the panel number 3. So requesting everybody to please pick up your tea and snacks and come back into the room. Thank you. Ermi Tool, do we have the panelists for the next session on backstage? Do we have Mr. Rahul Vats in the room?